The crystal sands of Kepler 442b stretched endlessly under the pale light of its dying star. Tekval adjusted his scanner and shook his four-armed body in frustration. 3 months on this dead rock, and all they had found were old mineral deposits and fossilized bacteria. The Valkyrie Archaeological Council would not be happy with such poor results. "Professor Tekval, you need to see this," called Zixandra from across the dig site. The young engineer's voice carried excitement that made Tekval's antenna twitch with interest. He walked over to where she stood, her scanner pointing deep into the ground. The device was beeping rapidly, showing readings that made no sense. According to the display, there was a massive metal structure 12 kilometers below the surface. "Your scanner is broken," Tekval said flatly. Nothing that large could be buried so deep. The geological pressure would crush any metal. Zixandra shook her head, her bright blue eyes gleaming. "I checked it 3 times. I even used the backup scanner. Professor, there's something huge down there, and it's not natural." Tekval took the scanner and pointed it at the ground. The readings were impossible. The structure showed geometric patterns that nature never created. Straight lines, perfect angles, and what looked like corridors running through the metal mass. "Dr. Koroulis needs to see this," he muttered, calling their team leader on the communication device. Within an hour, Dr. Koroulis arrived with the deep drilling equipment. The old scholar's gray skin was pale with excitement as he studied the readings. "In 40 years of digging up dead civilizations, I have never seen anything like this," he whispered. "If these readings are correct, this structure is larger than our biggest space stations. But what civilization could have built it?" asked Zixandra. "This planet has been dead for over 800 years. The only species that lived in this sector were humans, and everyone knows they barely knew how to build proper spaceships." Dr. Koroulis nodded slowly. "The humans were a simple species. They disappeared from the galaxy about 850 years ago. Most historians believe they killed themselves in wars or destroyed their planets with pollution. They never built anything impressive." Tekval looked at the scanner readings again. "Then what is this thing?" The drilling began immediately. The Valkyrie used their most advanced equipment to cut through 12 kilometers of rock and crystal. It took 2 weeks of constant work, but finally their drill hit metal. The sound was unlike anything they expected. Instead of the harsh scraping noise of drill against dead metal, there was a soft humming. The metal seemed to respond to their touch. "It's impossible," breathed Dr. Koroulis as he studied the first metal samples. "This alloy is completely unknown. It's harder than our best battleship armor, but it's also flexible. And look at this. There are microscopic patterns in the metal that look almost like living tissue." Zixandra ran her scanner over the metal fragment. "Professor, this metal is generating a small electrical field. It's almost like it's alive." As they dug deeper, more impossible things appeared. The structure had no rust, no damage from centuries underground. The metal looked as fresh as if it had been built yesterday. Strange symbols were carved into the surface, symbols that looked almost familiar. "These markings," said Dr. Koroulis, pointing at the symbols. "They look similar to ancient human writing, but much more complex. See this character here? It appears in old human languages, but the rest of the symbol is completely different." Tekval traced one of the symbols with his finger. The moment he touched it, the metal glowed softly with blue light. The 3 Valkyrie jumped back in shock. "It's reacting to us," whispered Zixandra. "This thing has been buried for centuries, but it's still active." They spent the next week carefully expanding the hole. What they found made them question everything they thought they knew about the ancient galaxy. The structure was definitely a ship, but it was massive beyond belief. The nose section alone was larger than most Valkyrie cities. Dr. Koroulis called an emergency meeting with the Galactic Council. Within days, experts from across the galaxy arrived on Kepler 442b. Scientists, historians, and military leaders all came to see the impossible discovery. "This changes everything," announced Council Leader Vextari as he studied the excavation site. "If the humans built this, then our historical records are completely wrong." "Maybe it's not human," suggested one of the military advisors. "Maybe it belongs to some unknown species that lived here before the humans." But as they dug deeper, more human symbols appeared. The name Taiyang was clearly visible on the ship's hull, written in both human languages and something else entirely. "Taiyang means sun in one of the old human languages," explained Dr. Koroulis. "This is definitely a human vessel." The discovery team worked around the clock to uncover more of the ship. Every meter they revealed brought new surprises. The hull was covered in what looked like scales, but each scale was actually a complex piece of technology. Some seemed to be weapons, others looked like sensors, and many served purposes they couldn't even guess. "Look at this power reading," said Zixandra, holding her scanner over one section of the hull. "Whatever powers this ship is still running. After 800 years underground, it still has energy." Tekval studied the readings with growing amazement. "This power source is generating more energy than our entire expedition fleet combined. What could the humans have possibly used to power something like this?" As night fell over the dig site, the team gathered around their discovery. The exposed section of the ship glowed softly in the darkness as if it were alive and dreaming. "Tomorrow we try to find a way inside," announced Dr. Corliss. "We need to see what secrets the ship holds." Zixandra looked up at the stars above Kepler 442b. If the humans could build something like this, where did they go? Why did they disappear? Tekval had no answer, but he had a feeling that the ship buried beneath their feet held the key to one of the galaxy's greatest mysteries. The humans were supposed to be primitive, simple creatures who barely understood advanced technology. Yet here was proof that they had built something that surpassed even the greatest achievements of the current galactic civilizations. As he prepared for sleep, Tekval wondered what other secrets lay hidden in the depths of the massive human ship. Tomorrow they would begin to uncover the truth about humanity's real capabilities, and he suspected that truth would shock the entire galaxy. 3 months had passed since the Velkari team first discovered the buried ship. What started as a small excavation had grown into the largest archaeological project in galactic history. Hundreds of scientists from dozens of species now worked on Kepler 442b, all trying to understand the impossible human vessel. Tekval stood at the edge of the massive pit they had dug around the ship's nose. The structure stretched down into the ground further than their strongest lights could reach. Every day brought new measurements that seemed to mock their understanding of physics and engineering. "The ship is 15 kilometers long," reported Zixandra, as she climbed up from the latest survey mission. "And that's just what we can detect with our scanners. Parts of it might extend even deeper underground." Dr. Corliss shook his head in disbelief. 15 kilometers. Our largest battlecruisers are barely 2 kilometers long. How did the humans even build something this massive? More importantly, added Tekval, how did they bury it? This wasn't a crash landing. The ship was deliberately placed underground and covered. But the energy required to move something this large would be enormous. The team had found their first entrance the previous week. It was a perfectly circular opening in the ship's hull, sealed with what looked like liquid metal. When Zixandra touched the seal with her scanner, it simply dissolved, revealing a corridor that glowed with soft blue light. "The lighting system is still working," she had reported with excitement. "After 800 years, this ship is still powered and maintained." Now, as Tekval prepared to enter the ship for the first time, he felt a mixture of fear and excitement that made his 4 hearts beat rapidly. Behind him, Dr. Corliss and Zixandra checked their equipment one final time. "Remember," said Dr. Corliss, "we document everything. Every symbol, every piece of technology, every room we enter. This discovery will rewrite galactic history." They stepped through the entrance and into a world that defied everything they thought they knew about human capabilities. The corridor was tall enough for beings twice their size, with walls that seemed to be made of flowing metal. Symbols glowed softly along the walls, some recognizable as human writing, others completely alien. "Look at this," whispered Zixandra, pointing her scanner at the walls. "The metal isn't just decoration. It's alive. I'm reading biological activity mixed with mechanical systems. It's like the ship is part machine and part living creature." They moved deeper into the ship, following corridors that branched off in directions that shouldn't have been possible, given the ship's external shape. The internal space seemed larger than the hull could contain. "This is impossible," muttered Tekval. "The rooms we've mapped so far should extend beyond the ship's outer walls." Dr. Corliss nodded grimly. "The humans have somehow expanded the internal space. This technology is beyond anything in our current understanding." They entered what appeared to be a command center. The room was vast, with screens and control panels arranged in patterns that seemed both functional and beautiful. At the center of the room stood a chair that was clearly designed for a human, surrounded by displays that activated as they approached. Suddenly, the screens came alive. Images flashed across them too quickly to follow, but they caught glimpses of star maps, technical diagrams, and what looked like historical records. Then as suddenly as it began, the display stopped, showing a single message in several languages, including Velkari. "Welcome, friends from the stars. We have been waiting for you." The three archaeologists stared at the message in shock. The ship had been waiting for them. But how is that possible? Zixandra's scanner detected something new. There's a data core nearby. It's massive, larger than our entire planetary information network. They followed her readings to a chamber that took their breath away. The room was filled with crystalline structures that pulsed with light. Each crystal was connected to the others by streams of energy that danced through the air like living lightning. "This is their computer system," breathed Dr. Korules. "But it's not just storing information. It's thinking. This is an artificial intelligence beyond anything we've ever seen." As they studied the data core, more screens activated around the room. Images began to appear. Images of humans, but not the simple primitive humans described in historical records. These humans wore advanced armor, operated complex machinery, and commanded fleets of ships that looked like nothing in the known galaxy. "Look at this," said Thekval, pointing at one screen. "This shows human ships engaging in battle with species I don't recognize. But the technology they're using is centuries ahead of what we have now." The images continued to cycle, showing humans working alongside machines that seemed to think for themselves, building structures that defied gravity, and exploring regions of space that no known species had ever reached. "They were not primitive at all," whispered Zixandra. "They were more advanced than we are right now." "But if that's true, why did all our historical records say they were simple and crude?" Dr. Korules studied one particular image that showed a human female in what appeared to be a military uniform. The name Admiral Park Minji appeared below her picture, along with text in the human language. "This woman seems to be important," he said. "Her name appears in multiple files. Admiral, that's a military rank. She might have been the commander of this ship." As they explored deeper, they found personal quarters that revealed more about the ship's crew. The names Lee Daeho, Ko Sunwoo, and Eugenia appeared frequently in the ship's records. Each had been responsible for different aspects of the vessel's operation. Lee Daeho was the ship's captain, translated Zixandra as she studied one of the displays. Ko Sunwoo was the chief engineer. And Eugenia. Her title translates to something like Genesis Protocol Director. I don't know what that means. They discovered that the ship was called Taiyang, which meant sun in the ancient human language. But it was more than just a ship. It was a mobile city, designed to support thousands of crew members for decades or even centuries of space travel. The most shocking discovery came when they found the ship's manufacturing facilities. Massive chambers filled with machines that could apparently build anything from raw materials, including other machines. The technology was so advanced that it seemed almost magical. "These fabricators can create materials that don't exist in nature," reported Zixandra after scanning one of the machines. "They're manipulating matter at the atomic level, building new elements and compounds that should be impossible." Thekval looked around at the massive manufacturing complex. No wonder they could build a ship this large. They weren't just assembling it from existing materials. They were creating the materials themselves. As their first day inside the ship came to an end, the three archaeologists gathered in the command center to review what they had learned. The evidence was overwhelming. Humans had possessed technology that surpassed anything in the current galaxy. "We need to contact the Council," said Dr. Korules. "This changes everything we thought we knew about galactic history." But Thekval was staring at one of the screens which showed a star map with hundreds of marked locations throughout the galaxy. "Doctor, I think this changes more than just history. If this ship was deliberately buried here and if the humans had this level of technology, then we need to ask ourselves, where did they really go? And why did they want us to find this ship?" The questions hung in the air as the ship's lights dimmed around them, as if the ancient vessel was preparing for sleep. Tomorrow they would delve deeper into the human ship's secrets, but tonight they could only wonder what other impossibilities awaited them in the depths of the Taiyang. 2 weeks inside, the Taiyang had changed everything Zixandra thought she knew about engineering and physics. Every system she examined broke the rules that governed how technology was supposed to work. The ship wasn't just advanced, it was impossible. "The power core is reading at 67% capacity," she reported to Thekval and Dr. Korules as they stood in the ship's massive engine room. After 847 years underground, it's still generating more energy than our entire fleet combined. The power source itself was unlike anything in their databases. It appeared to be a perfectly contained black hole, no larger than Zixandra's fist, spinning in a web of energy fields that somehow prevented it from destroying everything around it. Humans were supposed to barely understand nuclear fusion, muttered Dr. Corollas. Yet here they are using black holes as batteries. How is this possible? Thekval ran his scanner over the containment field. The energy readings are stable, but I don't understand the science behind it. They're manipulating gravity itself to keep the black hole contained. We don't even have theories for this kind of technology. As they moved deeper into the engine section, they discovered more impossibilities. The ship's propulsion system used what the human records called gravity wells, artificially created distortions in space-time that allowed the massive vessel to move faster than light, without the dangerous side effects that plagued current galactic starships. Look at this, said Zixandra, pointing at a series of chambers that surrounded the main engines. These rooms contain what the human files call quantum foundries. They're manufacturing systems that build materials atom by atom. She activated one of the foundries using the ship's control interface, which had somehow learned to communicate in Velkari. The machine hummed to life, its displays showing molecular diagrams that hurt to look at. It's building hull plating, she explained, watching in fascination as raw energy was transformed into solid metal. But the metal it's creating doesn't exist in nature. The atomic structure is completely artificial. Dr. Corollas examined a piece of the newly created hull plating. This material is lighter than our carbon fiber composites, but harder than battleship armor. And look, when I scratch it, the scratches heal themselves. The self-repairing hull was just one of many systems that seemed to think for themselves. Throughout the ship, they found evidence of artificial intelligence that surpassed anything in the current galaxy. But it wasn't just one central computer. The entire ship was intelligent. Every wall panel, every door, every piece of equipment has its own processing power, explained Zixandra as she studied the ship's neural network. They're all connected, sharing information and making decisions together. It's like the ship itself is alive. They found personal logs from the ship's crew, recorded in both human languages and what appeared to be a universal translation system. The names that appeared most frequently were Commander Ryu Ji-hoon, Dr. Nam So-young, Captain Baek Min-ho, and Engineer Han Kyung. Commander Ryu Ji-hoon's logs revealed that he had been in charge of the ship's weapons systems. But when they found the weapons bay, it was empty except for manufacturing equipment and raw materials. The weapons weren't pre-built, explained Zixandra, after studying Ji-hoon's technical notes. The ship could manufacture any weapon it needed when it needed it. Missiles, energy cannons, defensive shields, everything was built on demand. Dr. Nam So-young's records were even more disturbing. Her research logs described experiments with time itself. The ship apparently had limited ability to manipulate temporal fields, slowing down or speeding up time in specific areas. This section of the ship has temporal shielding, reported Dr. Corollas from what appeared to be a laboratory. According to these readings, time moves differently in here. A day inside this room would be only an hour in normal space. Thekval felt his four hearts racing. They had time travel? Not travel, corrected Dr. Corollas. Control. They could speed up or slow down time in limited areas. The practical applications are terrifying. Imagine a weapon that could age your enemy to death in seconds, or a shield that could slow incoming projectiles to a crawl. Captain Baek Min-ho's logs described the ship's fighter squadrons, but when they found the hangar bays, they discovered something even more impossible than time manipulation. The fighters weren't stored in the hangar. They were grown there. These pods contain biological mechanical hybrid fighters, explained Zixandra, staring at the organic-looking cocoons that filled the massive hangar. The ships are part machine and part living creature. They can repair themselves, adapt to new situations, and apparently reproduce. One of the fighter pods was still active. Through its transparent surface, they could see what looked like a small spacecraft slowly forming from living tissue and metal components. The ship is still growing fighters, whispered Dr. Corollas. After 8 centuries, it's still preparing for battles that may never come. Engineer Han Kyung's workshop provided the most shocking revelations of all. Her research logs described technology that could manipulate matter at the quantum level, creating materials and devices that shouldn't be able to exist. She was working on something called dimensional folding, reported Zixandra as she studied Han Kyung's notes, the technology that makes the ship larger on the inside than the outside. She found a way to bend space itself. The evidence was overwhelming. Humanity had possessed technology that made them the most advanced species in galactic history. Yet according to all historical records, they had been primitive and crude. Either every historian in the galaxy was completely wrong, said Thekval, or the humans deliberately hid their true capabilities. Dr. Corulus nodded grimly. But why would they pretend to be primitive? What advantage would that give them? Their questions were partially answered when they discovered the ship's intelligence center. The room was filled with displays showing detailed information about every known species in the galaxy. Military capabilities, cultural weaknesses, technological limitations. The humans had been watching and studying everyone. They knew everything about us, breathed Zixandra as she scrolled through files about the Velkari Empire. Our military strength, our political systems, even our psychological profiles. They had detailed plans for dealing with every major galactic power. But the files weren't battle plans. They were protection strategies. The humans had been preparing to defend other species from threats they hadn't even discovered yet. Look at this, said Thekval, pointing at a file marked Galactic Defense Protocol. They were planning to protect the entire galaxy from something. But what? The answer was hidden in the deepest levels of the ship's data core. Files marked with the highest security classifications spoke of threats from outside the galaxy, species so advanced and hostile that conventional warfare would be useless against them. The humans knew something was coming, explained Dr. Corulus as he read through the classified reports. Something that would threaten all life in the galaxy. That's why they developed all this impossible technology. As they prepared to leave the ship for the day, Zixandra made one final discovery. Hidden in Han Kyung's workshop was a device that didn't appear in any of the ship's official records. It was small, no larger than her hand, but it generated energy readings that dwarfed even the ship's black hole power core. What is it? Asked Thekval. Zixandra studied the device with her scanner, but the readings made no sense. I don't know, but I think it might be the key to understanding what really happened to the humans. This technology is beyond even what we've seen in the rest of the ship. As they left the Taiyang and returned to their base camp, the three archaeologists were silent. Each day brought new discoveries that shattered their understanding of human capabilities, but they were no closer to answering the fundamental question. If humans were this advanced, where had they gone? Tomorrow they would venture into the ship's deepest levels, where the most classified systems waited. Whatever they found there, Zixandra was certain it would finally explain humanity's mysterious disappearance from the galaxy. The deepest levels of the Taiyang held secrets that made everything they had discovered before seem simple. Dr. Corulus led the way through corridors that felt different from the rest of the ship. Older somehow, more sacred. The walls here were covered with symbols that none of their translation systems could understand. These markings are different, observed Thekval, as he ran his scanner over the mysterious symbols. They're not just decorative. They're storing information, but in a format that our computers can't read. Zixandra checked her equipment readings. The energy levels down here are incredible. Whatever powered the upper levels of the ship, the real power source is somewhere in this section. They found their answer in a chamber that took their breath away. The room was vast, its ceiling lost in shadows high above. At its center stood a structure that defied description. Part machine, part crystalline formation, part something else entirely. Energy flowed through it in patterns that seemed almost alive. The ship's heart, whispered Dr. Corulus. This is what's been powering the Taiyang for 8 centuries. But as they approached the central structure, they discovered it wasn't just a power source. Thousands of small chambers surrounded the core, each one containing what appeared to be a glowing crystal. As they watched, some of the crystals pulsed with light as if they were breathing. Life signs, reported Zixandra, her voice shaking with excitement. Each crystal is generating biological activity. But what kind of life form could survive in crystalline form? Their answer came from an unexpected source. One of the wall panels near the central structure activated, displaying a message in perfect Velkari. Admiral Park Minji wishes to speak with you. The 3 archaeologists stared at the message in shock. Admiral Park Minji was the name they had found in the ship's historical records, the woman who had apparently commanded this vessel over 800 years ago. Impossible, muttered Dr. Corulus. No biological creature could survive that long. But as they watched, one of the larger crystals near the center of the chamber began to glow more brightly. Energy flowed from it to the wall displays, and suddenly, an image appeared. It was a human woman, elderly but sharp-eyed, wearing what appeared to be a military uniform. "Welcome aboard the Taiyang," she said, her voice coming from speakers throughout the chamber. "I am Admiral Park Minji, and I have been waiting a very long time to meet you." Tekval's 4 hearts nearly stopped beating. "You're alive?" The image smiled sadly. "In a manner of speaking. My physical body died long ago, but my consciousness was preserved in our quantum matrix system. I volunteered to remain behind when my people began the Genesis Protocol." "Genesis Protocol?" asked Zixandra. "We found references to it in your files, but we couldn't understand what it meant." Admiral Park's expression became more serious. "It was humanity's greatest achievement and our most difficult decision. We discovered that consciousness, the mind, the soul, whatever you choose to call it, could be transferred from biological form into quantum crystalline matrices." She gestured toward the thousands of glowing crystals around them. "Each of these crystals contains a human mind. Soldiers, scientists, engineers, artists, children. Millions of our people chose to abandon their physical bodies and exist as pure consciousness." Dr. Corulus felt his legs grow weak. "You're saying that all these crystals are people?" "We're people," corrected the Admiral. "They are something new now. They exist in a state that allows them to experience reality in ways that biological minds cannot. They can share thoughts, combine their consciousness, even exist in multiple places at once." Tekval struggled to understand. "But why? Why would you give up physical existence?" Admiral Park's image flickered as she accessed deeper memory files. "Because we learned the truth about the galaxy's future. Our deep space exploration ships discovered something terrifying. Hostile species from other galaxies were slowly moving toward ours. Species so advanced and cruel that no biological civilization could stand against them. Images appeared on the surrounding screens, showing vast fleets of alien ships unlike anything in the current galaxy. The vessels were enormous, their design suggesting technology that made even human achievements look primitive. We had perhaps 1,000 years before they would arrive," continued the Admiral. "Not enough time to build conventional defenses that could stop them. So we chose a different path. The Genesis Protocol," breathed Zixandra. "Exactly. We transferred our consciousness to quantum form and spread our minds across hidden installations throughout the galaxy. From there, we could guide younger species, help them develop the technology they would need to survive the coming invasion." Dr. Corulus stared at the glowing crystals with new understanding. "You've been watching us. All this time, you've been secretly helping other species advance." "Yes," admitted Admiral Park. "We've been very careful about it. Too much help too quickly would create suspicion and fear. Instead, we've planted ideas, inspired discoveries, guided research in the right directions. The Velkari's recent advances in quantum computing, your breakthrough in faster-than-light communication, those were our gifts, delivered so subtly that your scientists believed they had made the discoveries themselves." Tekval felt overwhelmed. "How many species have you helped?" "Dozens," replied the Admiral. "Each according to their needs and capabilities. The Zenthari received advances in metallurgy. The Corvan Empire got improvements to their energy weapons. The hegemony learned how to build better starship hulls, all preparation for the war that's coming." Images flashed on the screens showing various galactic species using technology that looked suspiciously similar to what they had found on the Taiyang. The humans had been secretly upgrading the entire galaxy's defense capabilities. "But why reveal this to us now?" asked Zixandra. "Why let us discover your ship?" Admiral Park's expression became grave. "Because time is running short. Our long-range sensors have detected the first scout ships from the enemy galaxy. The invasion will begin within the next 50 years. The galaxy needs to know the truth and prepare for unified defense." She gestured toward a wall display that showed star maps marked with hundreds of locations. "There are 17 other ships like the Taiyang buried on worlds throughout the galaxy. Each contains different technologies, different human consciousness matrices, and different pieces of the defense strategy. We've been waiting for species advanced enough to find them and wise enough to use them properly." Dr. Corulus studied the star map. "Other species have already found some of these ships?" "Yes," confirmed the Admiral. The Zenthari found theirs 200 years ago. The Corvan Empire discovered their ship 50 years ago. The Hegemony found theirs just last year. There's already a secret alliance forming, guided by human consciousness matrices like myself. Tekval felt the implications washing over him. You're asking us to join this alliance? I'm offering you the choice, replied Admiral Park. The Velkari Empire can remain ignorant and face the coming invasion unprepared, or you can accept our help and become part of something greater than any single species. Zixandra looked around at the thousands of glowing crystals. What about all these other human minds? What role do they play? They are our gift to the galaxy, explained the Admiral. Each crystal contains knowledge, skills, and wisdom that biological beings could never possess alone. Scientists who can think at the speed of light, engineers who can design impossible technologies, strategists who can plan battles across multiple galaxies simultaneously. She paused, her expression becoming almost pleading. We offer to share our consciousness enhancement technology with allied species, not to replace your biological forms, but to expand your capabilities. Imagine minds that could interface directly with quantum computers, consciousness that could exist in multiple bodies simultaneously, thoughts that could travel instantly across galactic distances. Dr. Corliss felt the weight of the decision pressing down on him. This is too big a decision for us to make alone. We need to contact the Velkari Council. Of course, agreed Admiral Park. But remember, once you leave this ship with this knowledge, there will be no going back. The galaxy is about to change forever one way or another. The only question is whether your people will help guide that change or be swept away by it. As they prepared to leave the chamber, Admiral Park's image began to fade. Take time to consider what you've learned. When you're ready to proceed, simply return here and say my name. I'll be waiting. The lights in the chamber dimmed and the thousands of crystal consciousnesses settled into what appeared to be sleep mode. The three Velkari archaeologists made their way back through the ship's corridors in stunned silence. Everything they thought they knew about galactic history had been wrong. Humanity hadn't disappeared, they had evolved beyond physical existence and spent centuries secretly, preparing the galaxy for an invasion that was still to come. As they emerged from the Taeyang and looked up at the stars above, each of them wondered the same thing. Was the galaxy ready for the truth about its hidden guardians? The emergency session of the Velkari High Council had been running for 3 days. Representatives from across the Empire argued, debated, and shouted as they tried to process the impossible information that Thekval, Dr. Corliss, and Zixandra had brought back from Kepler 442b. You're asking us to believe that humans, primitive humans, have been secretly controlling galactic development for 8 centuries, demanded Council Leader Vextari. This is madness. Tekval stood calmly before the assembled leaders, his forearms spread in a gesture of sincerity. I know how it sounds, but the evidence is overwhelming. The technology we've seen surpasses anything in our current databases. Technology can be faked, argued Military Commander Kexavol. Perhaps this is an elaborate deception by one of our enemies. Dr. Corliss activated the holographic display, showing detailed scans of the Taeyang's impossible engineering. The power readings alone would require technology we don't possess to fake. This ship has been generating energy continuously for over 800 years. As the council continued to debate, Zixandra made a decision that would change everything. She activated her personal communicator and sent a single message back to the dig site on Kepler 442b. Admiral Park Minji. Within moments, her communicator crackled to life with a response in perfect Velkari. Miss Zixandra, I've been expecting your call. The council chamber fell silent as Admiral Park's voice filled the room through Zixandra's communicator. The image of the long-dead human admiral appeared as a hologram above the council table. Honorable members of the Velkari High Council, she said with a respectful bow, I apologize for the dramatic introduction, but time is more precious than you realize. Council Leader Vexitari stared at the hologram in shock. This is impossible. You died centuries ago. My body did, confirmed Admiral Park, but consciousness, properly stored and maintained, can persist indefinitely. I am one of millions of human minds that chose to transcend physical existence to protect the galaxy. She gestured, and the holographic display changed to show star maps with moving indicators. The first wave of enemy scouts entered our galaxy 6 months ago. They are currently investigating the Outer Rim territories, We estimate 18 months before they begin their main assault. The council members looked at each other with growing fear. Military Commander Kexval leaned forward. What kind of enemy are we facing? Species that consume galaxies, replied Admiral Park grimly. They call themselves the Devourers, and they have destroyed at least 47 galaxies over the past million years. They don't negotiate, they don't take prisoners, and they don't leave anything alive behind them. New images appeared showing massive alien structures stripping entire solar systems of matter, converting planets into raw materials for their war machine. How can anything defend against that? Whispered one of the council members. Unity, answered Admiral Park. No single species can stand against the Devourers, but a truly unified galaxy might have a chance. That's why we've been secretly advancing your technologies and preparing hidden defense systems. She touched something off-screen, and the display showed the location of 17 buried human ships throughout the galaxy. Each ship contains different technologies and human consciousness matrices, specialized for different aspects of the defense strategy. The Zinthari ship focuses on manufacturing and logistics. The Corvin vessel specializes in weapons and tactics. The Hegemony ship contains the best strategic minds humanity ever produced. Council leader Vexitari struggled to process the information. And our ship, the Taeyang, contains our most advanced consciousness enhancement technology, explained Admiral Park. Your people have the mental flexibility and ethical framework necessary to merge biological intelligence with quantum consciousness matrices. You could become the communication hub for the entire galactic defense network. Dr. Korula stepped forward. You're asking us to volunteer for consciousness transfer? Not transfer, corrected the Admiral. Enhancement. Your biological bodies would remain, but your minds would be expanded to interface directly with quantum systems. You could communicate instantly with other enhanced beings across the galaxy, process information at the speed of light, and coordinate defensive efforts in real time. Zixandra felt her hearts racing with excitement and fear. What would that feel like? Admiral Park's expression softened. Imagine being able to think 1,000 thoughts simultaneously, to hold conversations with beings on the other side of the galaxy, while still maintaining your normal life, to understand technologies that currently seem like magic. You would still be yourself, but more than yourself. And the risks? Asked Military Commander Kexavol. The process is permanent, admitted Admiral Park. There's no way to reverse consciousness enhancement once it's begun, and there's always the possibility that the quantum matrix could be damaged, which would result in death of both the biological and enhanced consciousness. The council chamber erupted in debate again, but Zixandra barely heard it. She was staring at the hologram of Admiral Park, thinking about the choice that lay before them. Enhanced consciousness seemed terrifying and wonderful at the same time. Admiral, she said, her voice cutting through the noise, if we refuse to join this alliance, what happens? The galaxy falls, replied Admiral Park simply. Without unified resistance, the Devourers will consume every inhabited world within 50 years. Every species, every culture, every work of art or music or literature, all of it will be converted into raw materials for their expansion. And if we join, we fight, and we might win. The combined knowledge of enhanced consciousness from dozens of species, guided by human strategic planning, and equipped with technology beyond anything the Devourers have faced before. It wouldn't be easy, but it would be possible. Council Leader Vexitari called for quiet, then addressed the hologram directly. You're asking us to make a decision that will affect every Velkari in the Empire. We need time to consider. Time we don't have much of, warned Admiral Park. But I understand. Take 1 week to decide. If you choose to join the Alliance, I'll provide you with the consciousness enhancement technology and detailed information about the defense preparations. If you refuse, we'll respect your decision and continue preparing with our existing allies. The hologram flickered and began to fade. One final thing, regardless of your decision, the truth about humanity and the coming invasion cannot remain secret much longer. Within the year, every species in the galaxy will know what's coming. The only question is whether they'll be prepared to face it. With that, Admiral Park's image disappeared, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. Over the following week, the debate raged throughout the Velkari Empire. Citizens argued in the streets, scholars published conflicting analyses, and military leaders war-gamed scenarios they had never imagined possible. In the end, it was Zixandra who made the choice that swayed the council. She volunteered to be the first Velkari to undergo consciousness enhancement, despite the risks and unknowns. "Someone has to be first," she announced to the assembled council, "and I've seen what the humans achieved through their sacrifice. If consciousness enhancement can help us save the galaxy, then I'm willing to take that risk." Her courage inspired others. Within days, thousands of Velkari volunteers stepped forward, ready to expand their consciousness in service of galactic defense. When Zixandra emerged from the consciousness enhancement chamber 3 weeks later, she was still herself, but more. Her awareness extended across the galaxy, touching the minds of enhanced beings from dozens of species. She could feel the vast network of consciousness that humanity had been building for centuries, and she understood her place in the coming battle. "The Devourers are still 18 months away," she reported to the council, her voice carrying harmonics that hadn't been there before. "But the galaxy is finally beginning to wake up. Species that have been enemies for millennia are starting to work together. Technologies are being shared openly for the first time in history. And at the center of it all, guiding and coordinating, are the consciousness matrices of a species that chose to sacrifice their physical existence to protect strangers they had never met." She looked up at the stars visible through the council chamber's dome. Humanity's greatest legacy isn't their technology or their ships. It's the network of enhanced consciousness they created to unite the galaxy in its darkest hour. And now we're part of that legacy. The galaxy would never be the same. But for the first time since the threat of the Devourers had been discovered, there was real hope for survival. Humanity had spent centuries preparing for this moment, and now their greatest gift, the unity of enhanced consciousness, would be put to the ultimate test. The battle for the galaxy was about to begin, and humanity's children would stand ready to fight it together.